This podcast is for you. Your co-hosts, Ben Dodge and Eric Huso at Effect Epic Consulting, believe that your potential is limitless. Tapping into this potential is how you can affect epic results in your life, relationships, and business. Welcome to the Principles of Epic Growth.
Buenos dias,
as they say in Spanish-speaking countries. That's right.
Good morning, brother. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, man?
It's a beautiful day. Been raining, clear air. It's just that's why we live in Arizona right now.
Most people do not move to Arizona for the rain, but I'll tell you, when you do live here, you appreciate those days. Yeah. For those of you who are listening to this even remotely on the day that we're going to release it, it's been rainy here, and it's been awesome. Yeah, it's been awesome.
Beautiful day. Looking forward to the topic that we're going to talk about today. Something that makes a huge difference in every principle that we talk about. It's kind of a foundational principle, the foundation behind commitment, foundation behind integrity, foundation behind growth mindset. It's like a fundamental component of every principle that we've talked about.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's ground zero. It's everything kind of has its origins here. It's one of the best principles to kind of get under your belt in a good paradigm and understanding it right away, so that you can then apply it in everything else. Kind of like you said, yeah. Like It is a good launch pad, if you will.
Yeah, a launch pad is a great analogy for this thing we're going to talk about, called faith or belief. Okay, now if your mind went to a religious context, we're not talking about faith in a religious context. We're not talking about belief in a religious context. We are talking about faith as a principle of power. Okay, we're talking about faith as one of these principles that can expand and augment everything that you're committed to in life to create. Okay, so faith ultimately is the foundation of creation. So without faith, you can't create anything.
Like, what do you mean?
So, we talked a little bit in a previous podcast how everything that we do is rooted in faith. So I brush my teeth because I have faith that action is going to prevent tooth decay. I get in my car and I go through a green light because I have faith that others will stop at their red light. Like, every action is rooted in faith. We have faith in an economy. We have faith in people. We have faith in all these things. And so without faith, you are paralyzed, and you won't risk anything. You won't act on anything. And so when I talk about faith as the foundation of creation, like, you're not going to extend yourself to create anything in this world without the presence of faith.
Okay.
Faith is the foundation of change. Change is a scary thing. Change is a hard thing. The hardest thing that you'll ever do as a leader is inspire people to change, right? So, there's consultants out there that all they do is help organizations with their change management, because it's so hard to get organizations to change. It's like trying to turn a cruise ship on a dime. It's just
I love cruise ships.
Oh man, I'm still carrying around 8 pounds from my last cruise ship.
So listen, you guys are going to hear the word faith a whole bunch today, and if you're anything even kind of like me, like Eric mentioned before, you're going to instantly think of church and religious context and stuff. So for our purpose today, you can easily substitute the word belief in for faith, and it should work the same. I think there are some subtle differences there, but in the context and perspective that we're trying to present, it's believing that something is going to happen. It's believing.
Yeah.
And another way is exercising faith, because having faith is almost like a noun, right? Exercising faith is more like a verb, and that's why my mind tends to go to the word believing, because it's all wrapped in one. You can, believing is the verb version of having a belief. Yeah. And so I just kind of like it. That's just where my mind goes. But for those of you, if you're even kind of like me, just keep thinking belief or believing.
Yeah. So Stephen R. Covey talks about two creations. You have the physical creation, and you have the mental creation prior to the physical creation. So faith is the element that drives the mental creation. So when you can see yourself with a certain amount of income, when you can see yourself in a certain situation, faith is what's driving that. It's that mental creation prior to the physical creation of what you're trying to create in this world. Okay, so a couple other things where faith is really a fundamental element or participation in some of these other principles we talked about is faith is the foundation of the growth mindset. Okay, if you want to go back and listen to that podcast, it's one of our most popular podcasts on growth mindset. Faith is what drives us to believe that we can grow, that talents can be developed, that we can gain new skills, that you're not fixed in who you are. You weren't just born a certain way, that you can become anything that you want to become. Faith is what drives that growth mindset.
Yeah, that begs a question that I'm not sure we really discussed beforehand, much like normal. We'll see where these podcasts take us. But
Yep, it's organic here.
So here's the question for those struggling with that belief. They don't believe they can grow. They don't believe that they have opportunity or possibility. They may even be a person that suffers with depression. I know we did a podcast about depression as well, but how does one develop faith? How do you grow a belief?
Yeah. I'm going to, just like TV and radio does, we're going to leave you hanging on that question, because that's the $1 million question with all of these. Okay, how do I develop my faith? How do I strengthen my faith? And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. So hang on.
I'm going to hold you to that, because I think strengthening is different than developing. Strengthening means you already have it.
Yeah. No, but the answer is the same as for developing and strengthening faith, I believe.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. We might debate this a little bit.
Yeah, I
it's
love
good.
it. I
That's
love
good. Okay. Faith is, and maybe here's where you're talking about in terms of developing new talents. Faith is also the foundation to self-mastery. So you have a talent, and you want to master that talent. You want to gain some level of mastery. Faith is what gives you the power to continue to perfect that. Okay, so when you first start something, gains can be more accelerated, and then when you're really good at something, it's much more challenging to have growth. When you're really good at something, to go from an elite level to a greater level than elite, like that's self-mastery, and faith, believing that that's possible, is what drives that. I believe that faith is the foundation of leadership. Faith is what gives you the power to inspire other people to follow your actions and believe in your words. I believe that faith is the foundation of all your motivation. So, what motivates you when you wake up in the morning? What motivates you to go kill it at work? What motivates you to come home and be committed to your family? Motivation comes from within, and it's a feeling, and it's something that is driven by faith. And I believe that faith is rooted in the future. So when we talk about faith, we're talking about tomorrow. We're talking about next year. We're talking about 10 years from now. It enables us to look past the challenges that we're facing right now and see that future that we're wanting to create. The kinds of relationships and the kinds of financial success or whatever it is that we're wanting to create in our life. Faith is what continues to drive that. So essentially, faith is that great moving power that creates change in this world. And that's why faith is a key component, a key element of every one of these principles that we've talked about in the past, like commitment, integrity, and self-mastery, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here processing this because, I completely agree with it. Let's just be clear there. My mind keeps going back to the guy that doesn't believe that he can. Like, sure, motivation comes from within. I'm a huge believer in that. Not to use the word belief so much, but it's true. Yeah. And what about the person who's unmotivated? What about the person that doesn't have that faith, or does not believe that he or she can accomplish this, or does not believe that he or she is worthy of this, which is a real big problem, I think, in our society, a self-esteem issue that most people have. That's faith. This is like a long definition of all the different versions of faith, right? That you're going through, and how it's a foundation of this, and that, which I completely agree with. So how does one come to a belief in oneself?
So here's the answer to your question, okay? And the answer to your previous question. You have to act. You have to take a step into the dark. Well, wait a minute, I don't have faith to take. Well, that faith requires action. And one of the hiccups that gets in the way of people using faith as a principle of power is the desire for knowledge. They want to know. Well, I can't do that unless I know that it will work out. Well, no, that's not what faith is. Okay, so faith is things in the future. It's rooted in the future. It's rooted in things not seen. And so action is the only way to develop faith.
So most people would say that faith precedes action.
Correct.
And that action can only actually happen because you have some version of faith in something.
That's correct.
And so to my question and point is, what about the person who lacks that faith completely? And it's not a matter of they're not going to do it because they don't think that it's, or that unless they know that it's going to work. So not the knowledge thing. Just someone who has the worst self-esteem and confidence on the planet. They don't believe. There's no way they can take action until they get the belief part. So the action won't fix the belief because they have to have the belief first. So here's what I think they should do in this scenario. They should take the time to look at what they're committed to. Mm-hmm. And they should really be clear on their commitments. And our commitment podcast is good for that. We've got 2 of them out there on commitment. They should be really clear on what they're actually committed to. And by that, let's break that down. What they're willing to do anything for. That's commitment, right? What they're willing to do anything for. Then they should transition their time and their reflection to thinking about themselves, like introspectively, like things that they can do. And if it's as simple as, I can put my shoes on today. Okay, that's one thing that you can do. You've got capacity there. You can believe that you're going to do this. And then you can take action on that belief, and that can trigger and spark bigger belief and bigger actions. But they have to look inside themselves to see what they can actually do. So belief to me, because I like the word belief and believing, belief to me is going to start with themselves. They have to believe in themselves to be able to do something. And that's a huge problem in our society and world today, is that a lot of people lack a belief in themselves. On some level, on some issue, we all struggle with it. Mm-hmm. No one believes that they can do everything perfectly, right? There's just no way. And if that person's arrogant or a liar, or both. And so really, all of us struggle with this on some degree. So introspection in oneself and identifying those things that they can do and spending time to create the belief in themselves is like step 1. I think that's a paradigm thing. I really think that's a perspective. That's how do you view yourself? Now that's going to change from your upbringing and all of the things that affect paradigms, right? Like everyone's going to be different on how they were treated and what their emotional baggage is, right? Growing up and whatnot in their marriages and so forth, bullies at school, whatever. So I always default to that Hindu legend. And I know we've talked about this a bunch, but it's probably worth sharing again. And that is like that within yourself, you already have all of the power to do whatever you want to do. That's the nutshell of that legend. Essentially, as human beings, the Hindus believe that as human beings, we were all once, gods, and that we abused that power, and so they had to take it away. And so the greater gods were taken away, and they were discussing where to hide it, right? And so they said, well, hide it high up in the sky. And they're like, no, the humans, they'll figure out a way to climb up there. They'll see it up there. They'll see it, right? And so they'll figure a way to climb up there and get it. Okay, then let's bury it in the dirt. They can't see it in the dirt. Yeah, but they know, that treasures are buried in the ground. So they're going to dig and dig and dig until they find it. They're already digging for treasures. Okay, well, let's bury it in the sea. Well, they'll figure out how to build some sort of boat or something to get down there. We got to put it somewhere where they'll never look. That's the whole point, right? We got to put it somewhere where they'll never look. And so they put it deep inside. So for those of you listening, I'm pointing right inside my own chest right now to where my heart would be. So they hid this power within us. And so obviously it's a legend, but the principle is fantastic and wholly applicable. And that is that within us, we already have the power to do good and to create amazing things. And until we can see that, even if it's on a simple level of, yes, I can tie my shoes today. I might be the most depressed person, or I might be struggling with all kinds of anxiety and fear and frustration and everything else in life, but I can tie my shoes today. Okay, start there, and see that you have that potential within you already, and then you can take action, because you can't possibly take action unless you inadvertently believe somewhere that something's going to happen from that action.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm not going to push the gas on my gas pedal unless I believe that that's going to make my car go forward. Right? And so, yeah, so I think that belief inside is the first place to start. And if they don't have it, then they'll never take the action.
Yeah. And you mentioned that most people struggle with this on some level, and that's true. Most people are blinded to where they're not being powerful, where they're not demonstrating faith or belief in themselves, in their potential to create. And so that's where having a mentor comes into play, where you have a trusted friend, a mentor, a coach, somebody who can see beyond what you can see, who can see your potential, can see who you are and what is possible for you, and can help expose you to that.
Yeah, and seek those people out, right?
Yeah.
With great care and concern. If you're going to take somebody else's opinion and you're going to mold that into your life, make sure you seek those people out with great care and concern.
Yep.
And when they issue you opinion about yourself, you should be open and awake to it. You should also be careful with it, frankly, right? And so, but yeah, I like to call that the Overwatch position, right? Like the SEALs put somebody like a sniper up in Overwatch. They can see the whole battlefield. When you're down there in the streets knocking down doors, you can't see what's around the corner, but the guy in Overwatch position can. Mm-hmm. And so, it's good to put a skilled sniper on your side, right? Like in Overwatch. And so, yeah, getting a mentor, it could be your spouse. It could be somebody that you look up to in the business world. It could be a sibling, it could be whoever. It could be a coach. Obviously a professional coach is fantastic, right? And so those people will help guide you through this, because guaranteed on some level somewhere, each of us is struggling with that belief in ourselves. In other words, like the only limits to our capacity are the ones that we're putting on ourselves because we don't believe we can.
Yeah. And those come from, you mentioned earlier, paradigms that we've adopted, okay, from previous experiences. You mentioned a couple, like maybe I was bullied when I was a kid, and so I have this paradigm that I'm not good enough and I can't do that. And even though that happened 30 years ago, I still carry that paradigm with me. And so I have to be able to peel away that paradigm. I have to be able to see the world with new eyes. I have to be able to see things differently, right, in order to exercise faith. I have to peel away previous quote unquote knowledge. And this is where knowledge gets in the way of faith, because everything that you and I know is limited. The knowledge that we have really is limited to our own context. And that context may or may not be accurate. So I'm going to give an obvious example, an outrageous example to demonstrate, okay? So your context is that you've never swam before, okay? You were raised in the desert, and, bodies of water to swim in and recreate in were just not a part of your upbringing. And so you come to this body of water. You're like, wow, what is that? That's water. And somebody says to you, yeah, you can swim in that. Well, what's swim? Well, that's where you float in the water. And you're like, float in the water? What? I've never heard of that before. I don't believe that I could do that. That's something new. And so you take a rock and you throw that rock into the water, and you see that rock sink to the bottom. You're like, wait a minute. I can't float. I can't swim. What are you talking about? This rock's smaller than I am. This rock's lighter than I am. Like, if I throw myself into that water, I'm going to sink to the bottom. And so that's an example where knowledge, based on your context, limits you from acting. And so having that mentor who can help you peel away a paradigm that's preventing you from acting, a paradigm that, that's real knowledge that you had. Yeah, I threw a rock in the water and it sunk to the bottom. That's real knowledge, but it's created a paradigm that actually created false knowledge of I can't swim, and that's limiting your action. And so having a mentor, having a coach, somebody who can expose you to new possibilities, that is the key then to answer your question of what do you do for a person that doesn't believe in themselves, that doesn't act. Like, faith is rooted in action. You have to be able to act. And if you are afraid to act, you've got to align yourself with somebody who can help you see a new way, a new possibility.
Yeah, anytime you struggle with a belief issue, it's paradigm related. 100% of the time.
Repeat that.
That was my whole point in asking the questions. Yep. I wanted to get to that topic. But anytime you struggle with a belief issue, it's 100% of the time paradigm related.
And what creates paradigms?
False knowledge.
Yeah,
or knowledge in general.
Previous experience, false knowledge.
So that's the whole thing about being adult, being a human. Wake up and realize that the way you see things might not be 100% accurate. Like, you could be in a hall of mirrors at any given day, right? Like, and you're seeing something, but it's just an illusion to you. But because you see it, you'd swear that was the way it was. So in general, you can self-diagnose and help, right? Like, if you can adopt the paradigm of the fact that you suck at seeing things accurately, like, let's just be real here. Take that on as a paradigm and you adopt that. Then you can start self-diagnosing sometimes. You can start exercising faith in something and breaking down your own preventative barriers to action because your lack of faith in whatever issue, your lack of belief in yourself on this particular topic. You can believe you're a rock star in ABC. You go to XYZ and you think, I can't do this. I'm the worst. And that's just paradigm related 100% of the time. So if you can wake up to the fact that whatever previous experience you're relying on that forms and shapes your paradigm is possibly wrong, then you could potentially muster enough belief or faith to take an active step, right, towards that new thing. If not, that's what coaches and other people are helpful for, because you need somebody in Overwatch. Because any time you have a belief issue, it is 100% of the time paradigm related. That's like a powerful principle. So we spent a bunch of time in the beginning talking about action and how, you can strengthen your faith by taking action, which I totally agree. But there are a significant number of people out there that won't even take that step because they have a faith issue, which is a paradigm issue. So look inward. Remember that you're a rock star, that you have that just God-given potential inside you. And as long as there's breath in your lungs, you can do something about it. And there's some things on this planet that you're good at. Start there, focus there, exercise belief in those things and in your capacity in that area. And then you can exercise action afterwards, and it can create a cycle where you can continue to grow in that.
Yeah. And changing your paradigms is one of the scariest things that you'll ever do, because your paradigms define you. Like, you've adopted these paradigms for a reason. These paradigms define who you are, and they give you some level of comfort. Like, we've adopted the paradigm because it gives us comfort and safety. And so to peel away that paradigm puts us in a really vulnerable position. It puts us in oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. And so, be aware that this is easier said than done, to take away a paradigm.
Yeah, look at Christopher Columbus. Look, you got to go Christopher Columbus on your paradigms here.
Dude, Columbus stays in like a week.
It is. The world said the world is flat, right? The whole world said this world is flat. Christopher Columbus, we don't know exactly what he thought or believed per se, but we know enough. We know enough that he believed that wasn't true, or it was entirely worth the risk to see if it was true. Something along those lines. Christopher Columbus was like, I don't have that same paradigm world. I believe in something differently. I don't see it this way. So I don't have a belief issue with the world being flat. I'm going to go see. And boom, new world's discovered. So changing paradigms. So think about how hard it is. I brought that example up because Eric was mentioning how hard it is to change paradigms. It is hard to change paradigms. But you can adult up on this thing. You can wake up. You can be awake and present to the fact that you probably don't see something correctly. Look, go just check.
Except for the probably part, you're right.
Yeah, you don't see this correctly. Just if you're married, just go remember the last conversation you had with your wife and how you differed on opinions, or your husband. Chances are, like, you guys both feel like you're right, and you're both looking at something through your paradigms. In your own eyes, you might be right. But if you had somebody in Overwatch, you might see how both of you saw things completely off, right? So anyways, you got to be awake, you got to adult up, and you got to see this. On the other side of the coin, go Christopher Columbus on this thing. Change your own paradigm. Get help if you need it to help change your paradigm. That's what coaches are for, friends, mentors, and so forth. But realize that that the world might not be flat. It might just be round. and then you can exercise some belief in that and take some action. Now we're talking about taking massive action and 10xing it from the Grant Cardone world and all this other stuff, at which point you get massive results, such that he discovered new worlds, right? Yeah. Like with great risk comes great reward. I get all of that, and that's exactly what happened. But it started with a paradigm. And that's what led to his belief to be able to do this, and his belief led to action.
Yeah. A willingness to see things differently. And the rest is history. So let's talk about another thing that we've tiptoed around a little bit, mentioned it a couple times, that really gets in the way of faith, and that is fear. Okay, so fear is an extinguisher of faith. The power of faith is extinguished by fear, but they have one thing in common. The thing that both faith and fear have in common is they both believe in a future that hasn't happened yet.
One more time. That's a good one.
Faith and fear have this one thing in common. They both believe in a future that hasn't happened yet. So think about the things that you're afraid of. Well, I'm afraid that the stock market might crash. I'm afraid that I might lose my job, or I'm afraid that, all these fears are based in the future. We never fear the past. I'm afraid. No, we're afraid of the future, and those fears are driven by those paradigms. But both faith and fear live in the future. And so you have to be able to recognize that the future doesn't exist. Like, the future doesn't exist. Yeah, I really just said that. The future doesn't exist, because when the future gets here, it's now. So the future never exists. And so faith is what enables us to create a future that we would be excited to live into. So faith drives us to fulfill our commitments. When we are, like Ben mentioned earlier, one of the foundational things to really use faith in a powerful way is to get really clear on your commitments, where you've written down your commitments and you know what your intentions are. Now faith drives you to act on those intentions, where you're now living into it and creating that future, instead of creating a default future that is just a replication, a carbon copy of the past that's mostly based in being safe and being afraid of what could happen.
For sure. And why did I say commitments? Because commitment means you're willing to do whatever it takes. So fear's not going to get in the way. Commitment is doing whatever it takes and the willingness to do so. So you will struggle less with fear if you believe and take action in something you're committed to. It doesn't mean you won't encounter fear. You'll deal with it, though, because you're willing to do whatever it takes. So you have that different paradigm now, hopefully, and you'll continually develop and strengthen this paradigm where you believe in yourself and your own capacity as being just incredible. All of that comes from within. And then you're aligning your hopes and dreams and future, in other words, what you believe in and what you're going to exercise faith in, into something that you're committed to. Like that's the magic recipe, guys. Like that's where you deal with things like fear. That's where you deal with whatever other obstacles can come your way, and they don't matter. You can literally see, some of these athletes, for example, that are just so committed and they lose their legs and they're still out there racing these Ironman triathlons and other events. I just saw a video yesterday of must have been a soldier who was amputated from the waist down, no legs. And he was in a CrossFit gym and he was walking around on his hands because he didn't have legs. And he was doing box jumps with his hands.
Really?
Is impressive, over and over and over again. It was like a 3 or 4 minute video. I don't know how many reps he did, but I got tired just watching it. But again, my point is clearly he's exercising faith and belief that he can still do box jumps even though he doesn't have legs. Like, he doesn't fear what people think of him. He doesn't fear about falling off and not being able to do it. He doesn't, like, and if he does, he dealt with it because he's committed to something in there. He's committed to better fitness. He's committed to having a life even without having legs. You know, whatever the things that he's committed to, it's clear he's committed. And it's clear he's clear in his intentions. And so he's taking action because his paradigm, first and foremost, right? That's the seed of all of this. His paradigm is right on par here. And then he's able to exercise faith that will lead to action.
And no doubt he had a paradigm change, that he had to change his paradigm from previously when he had all four of his limbs,
right,
to when he lost his lower limbs. He had to change his paradigm, that what used to seem like it was impossible is now possible. And whether he had a mentor or a coach or a spouse or a friend or somebody helped him most likely through that process of changing that paradigm to let him see what's possible in spite of the change.
Right.
And that's what leadership is. Great leaders inspire us to have faith and confidence. And I love this quote by John Gordon. He says that leadership is a transfer of belief. Leadership is a transfer of belief. And you mentioned earlier Christopher Columbus. You said, I wish that I could have known what his thought process was. I wish I would have known, and wouldn't that be great? Well, we have a more modern example of Christopher Columbus where we can get into the thought process and some of the more details, and that's John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy did in our day what Christopher Columbus did in his day. Christopher Columbus led a team to discover new worlds. And John F. Kennedy led the United States to put the first man on the moon. No other time in history had somebody done what Christopher Columbus had done. No other time in history had, that we know of anyway, had anybody sent a man to the moon. And at the time, the United States and Russia were in a race, a space race to be the first one to get to the moon. And Russia was ahead. The USSR was ahead of the United States in this race. They were much more advanced. They were having much more success. We were having some failures with some of our missions, explosions, loss of life. It was a really difficult time. And JFK gave his word. With his word, he said, we will put a man on the moon within this time frame. And people believed his word. People believed his word, and they worked toward that cause, and we put a man on the moon. We took some huge risks where instead of taking a step, we took some jumps, and really put human beings put life at risk to fulfill this dream and this promise because they believed it. They believed that it was possible, and when you get a group of human beings that are aligned, committed to something, a cause greater than themselves, and that's fueled by faith, that's fueled by belief, then there's nothing that will stop them. And the experience of the United States putting a man on the moon is a perfect example of that.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's incredible. There's a lot of lessons there we should unpack someday. For time's sake, we'll skip over it, but yeah, the a lot of lessons there. The intention, the clarity, the leadership, the faith, the action, the massive action, the teamwork. He didn't do it by himself, obviously, right? Anything that's worth achieving on an epic scale can never be done by yourself. It's always done with a team, always. Even the individual athletes out there accomplishing these amazing feats, they're doing it because they have a team. People supporting them, a coach, whatever, right? They might be the only one out there on the field that day or on the mountain hiking Everest or whatever, but there's Sherpas behind, there's this and that, there's always a team behind any great epic success for sure, as was with the moon. So yeah. Cool.
So for those of you that are leaders of teams, if you want to change people's behavior, you have to change their beliefs first. And that's going to take some work. Like, you have some work to do to help people see that there's other possibilities, to inspire people to see that there's other possibilities. So you've got to help people shift their paradigms. And the best way to do that is to be that kind of a person. Be the kind of person that is open to new possibilities. Be the kind of person that is open to questioning your quote unquote knowledge and the way things that really are to you, and to relate to people and see, make those efforts to see how they see the world. And that will give you the opening or the opportunity to help them change their possibilities or change their paradigms.
Yeah, so there's a fine balance there, but I love it. And that is to help other people change their belief system. You still have to be awake to the fact that yours might be wrong, right?
Yeah.
But all good leaders are going to inspire people because they stay committed to their belief system. I mean, let's be honest, whatever their beliefs are, like whatever their goals are, whatever their huge mission is that they're trying to accomplish, they're sticking to it. They're committed to it. But most of the time, the really good ones are also super adaptive. And so as they encounter obstacles, they have themselves surrounded with people that are incredibly smart and productive and helpful and contribute to their team. And if they have an idea that might render some sort of new light on the situation, they'll listen to it and they'll adopt and they'll adapt and they'll change and so forth. So, but they are committed to their paradigms and they transfer those on. So that's the biggest step I think a lot of us fail at when we're trying to help other people and other organizations is you can teach principles of exercising faith and taking action, all kinds of stuff all day long. But if you don't start with the paradigms and the belief systems of those people that you're trying to help, if they simply just don't believe they can, then it doesn't matter how often you talk about 10xing it or how often you talk about taking massive action. They first have to believe that they're capable of it. And so a lot of times that's overlooked, the whole belief system. If they change their belief systems, you can increase capacity just because they now believe that they're more capable. It's amazing. They already have this internal battery inside them, and yet we're trying to jump them on some external battery that they're not even tapping into yet, right? Or they're not even using their own battery. And so start with their beliefs.
Yeah.
Look at that as leaders of organizations. Look at the people that you're leading and make sure that you're working with people that believe in themselves and believe in what you're doing, before you go on to some of the deeper principles.
Yep. And so as you're leading this, as you're inspiring people, you be an inspiring person. Be a person that people would want to follow. And I've mentioned this book several times. It's probably one of my favorite books, The 4 Agreements. And the 4 agreements are the key to help you as a leader inspire people to have faith. They're the key to help you demonstrate your faith. And so if you will be impeccable with your word, if you'll be a person of integrity, a person to be counted on, you just engendered trust. You just engendered faith in people. Like, people will follow a person who's impeccable with their word. Now you just inspired somebody to trust and demonstrate this faith, okay? The other thing is, don't make assumptions, is another one of the agreements. Like, challenge all the assumptions that you have created. You have, all these paradigms that you have, these assumptions about this group of people or that event or this kind of thing that you have to do. Like, challenge all the assumptions of the way things are and why they are the way things are. If you will challenge those assumptions, you'll now be open to new possibilities and new paradigms. And then the other agreement of the third agreement, it's actually the fourth agreement, but of the 4 agreements, is do your very best. When you are doing your very best, when you mentioned the 10xing, we think our very best is X, but we can do 10 times more than we think we can do. And so push your very best. The very best that you're doing, like, push it just a little bit more. You'll inspire other people to do more than what they thought was the very best. And so as you're demonstrating integrity, you're challenging your assumptions, you're doing your very best, you are a demonstration of faith. You're a demonstration of this principle that is the foundation for change, the foundation for growth, the foundation to create a future that people are excited to live into.
I love it. All right. Believe in yourself. Believe in what you're going to do, and then take some action. Faith, it's rooted in just about everything, right?
Yep.
Originating principle for just about everything else that we do, from commitments to everything else. So awesome. Great day, guys. Thanks for all your comments, by the way, and questions. We love those. Keep those coming.
Yep. Have a great week, my friends.
Enjoy it.
Thanks for listening to the Principles of Epic Growth podcast, your path to epic performance and life with incredible growth.